They laughed at you, doubted your worth, and some even betrayed your trust. But you smiled, not because the pain vanished, but because you chose strength over chaos, control over impulse. You mastered the storm within, refusing to give them your peace. While the world watched, unaware, you became truly untouchable, calm, composed, unstoppable. In a few moments, I'll tech you how to learn the powerful art of acting as if nothing affects you, not to suppress your feelings, but to control your reactions. The power of definite purpose each morning offers a quiet choice: rise with purpose or rise without one. That difference, though silent and invisible to others, defines everything. A person can breathe, work, and move for decades and still never live a single day if they've never chosen a direction. Without a definite purpose, you are pulled apart by life's constant noise, your family's expectations, your workplace's demands, and society's invisible leash that tells you who to be and how to act. But beneath all of that is a quieter voice asking, what do you expect from yourself? When you finally answer that question with conviction, your life begins. Not in a dramatic, cinematic moment, but in the small, deliberate steps that follow a single decision. You are no longer tossed by the winds of other people's opinions. You stop reacting to life and start moving through it with intention. Purpose does not mean frantic speed or constant motion. It means clarity, steadiness, a reason for your steps that doesn't vanish when things get hard. There is something powerful, almost untouchable, about someone who knows why they're here. Distractions lose their grip. Delays no longer derail. Doubt fades into the background. You become a different kind of human when you decide to pursue one true goal instead of scattering yourself in 10 directions. You become aligned, focused, dangerous in the best way. So ask yourself, what are you truly building? Not a short-term win, not someone else's dream dressed up as your own, but something real. Something that would stretch you, cost you, shape you, something that if you reached it would flood you with pride. Wouldn't you wake up with more clarity? Wouldn't the stress and noise shrink in comparison? Picture walking into a room filled with confusion, indecision, and hesitation, and feeling none of it, not because you have all the answers, but because you've made one decision that matters. The moment you say, "This is my path," you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for external validation. You stop asking life to give you permission to begin. You just begin. But purpose demands courage. You must choose it. And that's the part many avoid. They wait, hoping clarity will arrive on its own. It won't. Life does not assign you a mission. You assign one to yourself. Those who thrive are not always the most talented or the loudest, but they are often the clearest. They see a mountain no one else sees and commit to climbing it, quietly, persistently, without applause. So the question becomes simple, even if the answer is not. Are you ready to live like that? Emotional fortitude over emotional reaction? Consider the last moment when your emotions got the better of you. Maybe it was anger that bubbled over in a conversation, or anxiety that pulled you away from something important. In that moment, who was in charge? Your vision or your reaction? Emotions are powerful, no doubt, but left unchecked, they don't build, they break. They scatter your energy, disrupt your direction, and often leave behind regret in place of progress. You are not some fragile thing drifting through circumstance. You are not designed to be flung around by irritation, fear, or disappointment. You are equipped with something stronger: awareness, intention, control. But these qualities only activate when you take the wheel. The difference between reacting and responding is only a breath, but that breath is everything. Life doesn't ease up for anyone. It brings friction, delays, disrespect, disruptions, and while you can't dictate what happens, you can master how you show up. That is emotional fortitude. It's not about pretending you don't feel. It's about standing in the storm without becoming the storm. It's about allowing emotion to pass through you without letting it decide for you. To feel without becoming consumed is a rare power, and those who cultivate it become unshakable. Imagine someone insults you. Do you throw your peace into the fire just to retaliate? Or do you recognize their comment as a reflection of them, not you, and keep walking? Not because you're weak, but because you're grounded. Because you've learned that protecting your energy is worth more than proving a point. That's not detachment, that's mastery. True emotional strength doesn't dull your fire. It channels it. It lets you harness the emotion and point it towards something greater, your growth, your focus, your vision. When you stop being reactive, you become responsive. And in that space between stimulus and response lies your greatest freedom. This is not about bottling up feelings or faking serenity. It's about recognizing that your first feeling doesn't have to be your first move. You can feel frustration rise, acknowledge it, and still choose action over impulse. The world may poke, provoke, or push, but you decide what comes next. That kind of control doesn't make you robotic, it makes you reliable to yourself and others. Now picture this. You're in the midst of chasing something meaningful. Obstacles appear, delays, criticisms, setbacks. But you don't spiral, you don't shout, you pivot calmly, you adjust. Like a seasoned climber who knows the mountain may shift, but the summit is still there. That steadiness becomes your power. The person who can feel everything without being ruled by anything, that person doesn't just survive life, they command it. So ask yourself, are you ready to lead with strength, not reaction? Are you ready to act from clarity, not chaos? If so, you've already taken the first step toward emotional fortitude. Discipline is freedom. Discipline is often misunderstood. People see it as a cage, a joyless routine, a sacrifice of spontaneity. But that's a surface level view. In reality, discipline is not restriction, it is release. It frees you from chaos. It liberates you from inconsistency. It hands you the keys to a life you actually want instead of the one you're stuck reacting to. Picture a day where you don't wake up late, rush through tasks, or regret wasted time. Instead, you rise early, your body alive with energy, your mind clear and focused. You know what matters and you move toward it without hesitation. That's not a burden, that's freedom. Freedom from distraction, freedom from regret, freedom from the question, what if I had tried harder? Discipline gives you the power to lead yourself. While most people drift, ruled by mood or circumstance, you decide. You don't wait for the right feeling, you act regardless. That ability to follow through, especially when it's inconvenient, is what separates the dreamers from the builders. You show up even when it's hard, even when it's dull, even when no one claps. That's where the edge is found. Every choice you make adds up. The time you set your alarm, the way you respond when you're tired, the decision to keep going or take the easy way out. Each one is a declaration of the life you're constructing. You're not just living a day, you're laying the foundation of your future. And you can either let that foundation be shaky and scattered or solid and intentional. Think about who you'd become if you kept every promise you made to yourself. If you trained your body even when you didn't feel like it, if you stuck to your goals regardless of weather, mood, or obstacles, how would that compound over time? The results would speak for themselves, not just in your achievements, but in how you carry yourself. You'd stand differently, speak differently, not out of arrogance, but out of earned confidence. Consider the farmer, rising before the sun, stepping into cold, wet fields, planting and tending without guarantee. The harvest doesn't wait for their inspiration. The crop doesn't care about how they feel, and yet the farmer shows up because the work must be done. Your goals are the same. They don't respond to feelings, they respond to effort. If you want a rare life, a life of real peace, deep fulfillment, lasting joy, then your habits must be just as rare. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about building a rhythm so strong that you move forward even on the hard days. That kind of life isn't given, it's built, and the tool is discipline. So, are you willing to build it? Are you willing to trade short-term ease for long-term greatness? Because discipline doesn't chain you, it frees you. It hands you back your time, your strength, your future, and in that, you become untouchable. Resilience in the face of setbacks. You try, you fall, you rise. Then something else hits, unexpected, unfair, unwelcome. And in those quiet moments afterward, when the noise fades and the dust settles, a small voice begins to whisper, maybe this isn't for you. But you don't listen, because deep down, beneath the sting of failure, you know something others forget. Setbacks are not signals to stop. They're invitations to grow stronger. Every person you've ever admired, whether they built a business, wrote a book, overcame odds, or simply kept going when others didn't, has a trail of failures behind them. More attempts than you've dared, more breakdowns than you've witnessed. Their strength wasn't born in comfort, it was forged in resistance. The thing that separates those who rise from those who retreat isn't talent, timing, or some divine advantage. It's the stubborn, quiet decision to continue. Resilience doesn't mean you don't hurt. It doesn't mean the fall doesn't shake you. It means you refuse to let it define you. Every obstacle life throws is a question in disguise. How much do you want this? And your answer isn't found in your words, it's found in your response. You get up, you adapt, you move forward, even if limping. Imagine a blacksmith, hammer in hand, shaping raw metal with fire and force. Each strike looks like destruction to the untrained eye, but it isn't. It's transformation. That's you. Life hammers, and instead of shattering, you're being refined. Each disappointment is a burn that tempers your resolve. Each failure, a strike that shapes your edge. You are not being broken. You are being made. What if failure lost its power over you? What if you knew that only quitting could stop you and everything else was just a chapter, not the ending? Would you take more chances? Would you speak louder, step further, dare bolder? Resilience rewrites the story before it ends. It says, "This isn't over unless I say it is." You were never meant to crumble under pressure. You were built for the storm. And when the world underestimates you, good, let it. You don't need the world's permission to rise again. You only need your own. And if you can look at the wreckage of a setback and still whisper, "I'm not done," then nothing can truly hold you. Because the truth is, you're not fragile. You've made it through moments that once felt impossible. You've survived days you thought would break you. And here you are, still breathing, still willing, still capable. That matters. So when the next challenge comes, and it will, you already know the answer. You rise. Maybe slower than before, maybe more bruised, but you rise. Not because it's easy, not because it's fair, but because resilience is not about being unbroken, it's about being unshakable. And you are just getting started. The courage to begin before you're ready. How many dreams have quietly withered while waiting for the perfect moment? How many ideas have died in notebooks, in conversations, in the safety of someday? It's easy to say, "I'll begin when I'm ready." It sounds wise, responsible even, but time has a way of slipping by unnoticed when you keep waiting for a moment that doesn't exist. Readiness is a seductive illusion. It lingers just beyond your reach, no matter how much you prepare. One more book, one more course, one more conversation, and still the feeling never quite arrives. Because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. It's the bold step into the unknown, not because you're fully equipped, but because you've realized the cost of waiting is greater than the risk of trying. Life doesn't pause for your perfection. The days go on, the years pile up. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself in the same place 5 years from now, still clinging to the same excuses, still hoping for the right time to come tap you on the shoulder. But it won't. The world doesn't operate on your fear. It moves with or without you. And the longer you wait, the louder doubt becomes. Every person who's ever done something meaningful started in uncertainty. They began with shaky hands and half-formed plans. They weren't experts, they weren't ready, but they were willing. And that made all the difference. The truth is, no book, no mentor, no ideal circumstance will give you the permission you're secretly waiting for. The only person who can give you that is you. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a dense forest. The path winds into shadow. You can't see more than a few steps ahead. Fear says, "What if you get lost?" But there's another voice, quieter yet stronger, that asks, "What if this is the way forward? What if this is exactly where you're meant to go?" That second voice is the one you follow, not because the fear disappears, but because you've decided it won't be in charge anymore. You were not born to store potential, you were born to express it. And expression requires movement. You will make mistakes. You will face doubt, missteps, and detours. But none of those things are failures. They are signs that you're alive in your journey. Confidence, clarity, and skill don't show up before you start. They're earned because you started. What would change if you gave yourself permission to move today as you are, with what you have, without one more preparation, without one more round of approval? Would the first step be perfect? No, but it would be real. And reality is where transformation begins. Not in endless preparation, but in imperfect motion. The world doesn't reward those who wait until they're flawless. It rewards those who show up in spite of the unknown, those who dare to begin without a guarantee. The bold ones, the ones who act even when their voice trembles and their hands shake. So ask yourself honestly, what would you lose by starting now? And what will you lose if you don't? The time will pass anyway. The question is, will you pass with it, still waiting? Or will you finally say, this is my moment, and step forward? Not when you're ready, but because you're ready enough. Mastery over thought. Guard the gates of your mind. The most sacred and powerful space you will ever be responsible for is not your house, your bank account, or your calendar. It's your mind. It's the space where your future takes shape, where your self-worth is built or broken, where your habits are born and your identity is carved. Every great achievement starts there, and so does every quiet failure, because whatever enters your mind, if left unexamined, begins to shape who you are becoming. Thoughts are not passive, they are seeds, and like seeds, once planted and watered, by repetition, emotion, or attention, they grow. They grow into habits, into beliefs, into identities. A single negative thought, replayed often enough, can harden into a lifelong limitation. A single doubt, if accepted as truth, can rewrite your entire trajectory. So the real question becomes, who is doing the planting? Are you consciously choosing your thoughts, or are you letting the world do it for you? We live in a time where information flows constantly. Conversations, headlines, all vying for a place in your inner world. But your mind is not a public square. It is not a dumping ground for the doubts and fears of others. It is a garden, and if you do not tend it, weeds will grow. If you do not stand at the gate, distractions and distortions will slip in unnoticed, slowly overtaking your inner clarity. You can't stop thoughts from appearing. That's human. Thoughts will pass through like clouds across the sky, sometimes dark, sometimes heavy, but you get to decide which ones stay. Just like you cannot stop a bird from flying overhead, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair, you cannot stop every thought from arising, but you can stop yourself from feeding the ones that destroy you. Suppose someone says something cruel to you. Do you let it replay in your mind over and over, each time reinforcing its sting? Or do you acknowledge it as noise, uninvited, and unimportant? When your inner voice speaks, does it echo someone else's doubt or your own truth? Mastery over your thoughts begins the moment you realize you do not have to believe everything your mind says. You can challenge it, you can redirect it. Your mind will believe what it hears most, so if you constantly allow fear to narrate your story, it will eventually feel like fact. But if you choose your thoughts like you'd choose your food, with intention, with care, then what grows within you will be strong, focused, and aligned with who you want to become. Sit with yourself in silence for a moment. Really listen. What does your mind say when nothing else is speaking? Does it encourage? Does it support? Or does it criticize and catastrophize? If it tears you down, ask, where did it learn that? Whose voice is that, really? And more importantly, do you want to keep carrying it? This is the work of mastery, not perfection, but awareness. Choosing moment by moment which thoughts to allow and which to release. You don't need to control everything in the world, but if you can control the world inside your head, you will become immovable. You become what you dwell on. So dwell wisely, guard the gates, train the voice, tend the soil, because your mind, when mastered, becomes the most powerful force you will ever possess. Faith in the unseen, the invisible force behind persistence. There's a moment that comes for everyone who dares to chase something bigger than comfort. It arrives quietly, after the early excitement fades, and the results are still nowhere in sight. You've done the work. You've shown up, you've followed the plan, and yet everything around you remains still. No applause, no breakthrough, no reward, just silence. And this is the moment where most people walk away, but not you. Because you know something most people don't. You've learned to respect the invisible, to trust in the unseen. Some things you've come to understand must grow underground first. Take the tree. From the outside, it seems like nothing is happening. You plant the seed, you water it, you wait, days go by, weeks, maybe even months. No sign of life. No green sprout pushing through the dirt, but beneath the surface something powerful is taking place. Roots are forming, strong, steady, deep. Roots that will one day support something great, something lasting. But first, they grow in silence, in darkness, in secret. And so does your progress. You might not see the fruits of your labor right now. You might not be able to measure what your consistency is building. But that doesn't mean it isn't happening. It is. Every moment you choose not to quit, every time you show up when it would be easier not to, you're growing something others can't see. You're building a foundation, laying down roots. This is where faith comes in. Not the kind that ignores reality, but the kind that trusts reality is often deeper than appearances. Faith is knowing that if you continue to give your best, the outcome will eventually align. That the universe, or life, or time itself is not ignoring your effort. It's preparing to reward it when the roots are ready. Faith is not passive. It's not waiting around, hoping something good happens. Faith is action. Faith is labor. It's choosing to move forward when everything around you says stand still. It's persistence powered by vision, a belief that your time will come. Even if today is quiet, even if today looks like yesterday, even if no one else sees what you see, ask yourself something simple but powerful. If you knew success was guaranteed, as long as you didn't stop, would you keep going? If the answer is yes, then act like it's true. Let that belief shape your posture, your choices, your energy. Because the only real difference between the ones who reach their goal and the ones who don't is that the first group never stopped planting. Never stopped showing up. They trusted the process long enough to see it through. Let others give up when things get slow. Let them call it foolish to keep going when there's nothing to show for it. Let them walk away, believing that what isn't visible must not be real. But you keep planting. You keep rising. You keep doing the work day after day, even if it feels like no one is watching, because you're not doing it for the crowd. You're doing it for the future. For the life you know you're capable of building. One day, the breakthrough will come. And when it does, people will look at you and call it sudden. They'll say it happened overnight, that it was lucky or easy or meant to be. But you'll know the truth. You'll know how long you waited, how many times you doubted but kept moving. You'll know about the roots, because it was never sudden, it was never random, it was just faithful. Faithful to the process, faithful to the vision, faithful to what you could not yet see. So keep going, keep planting, trust the invisible. Your roots are growing and your time is coming. The power of delayed gratification, trading moments for mastery. In a world of immediacy, of one-click purchases, instant likes and fast answers, waiting feels unnatural. Everyone wants the prize, but few are willing to endure the process. Fewer still are willing to walk past pleasure today to claim something far more valuable tomorrow. But this is the truth that sets the great apart from the average. Real success is slow, and it demands a willingness to trade the momentary for the meaningful. Every day you hear it, the soft, seductive call of comfort. Sleep in just a little longer. Skip the workout. Buy that thing you don't need. Watch one more episode. Rest now. Enjoy now. Indulge now. The voice is always there, and most people listen, not because they're weak, but because gratification now feels more real than the possibility of reward later. But here's the secret. The people who win in any field are the ones who can pause, who can wait, who can say no for now. To delay gratification is not about self-denial. It's not punishment. It's a strategy. A powerful, quiet strategy that builds something no impulse ever could. Discipline, control, and long-term gain. When you say not yet to something small, you say yes to something bigger. You're not missing out, you're setting up. Picture someone learning a skill, a craft, a language, a trade. At first, it's new and exciting. Then comes the wall, progress slows, frustration grows. This is where most quit. It's easier to chase something novel than to sit with something hard. But mastery doesn't come from bouncing between sparks. It comes from enduring the plateau, showing up when it's boring, staying when it's quiet. And every time you do that, every time you delay the urge to quit, You're building toward a future that others won't reach, simply because they wouldn't wait. Or consider money. Maybe you're saving for something that matters. A business you want to launch, a property you want to buy, a future you want to secure. And every day the world offers you a reason to spend it. Little luxuries, temporary highs, instant joy. But you resist. Not because you can't afford it, but because you're aiming higher. While others buy the illusion of wealth, you're building the foundation of it. You don't trade your dreams for dopamine. You understand that patience today becomes freedom tomorrow. And here's what's rarely said. Each time you choose discipline over distraction, each time you delay instead of indulge, you're training yourself. You're reinforcing a muscle most never bother to develop, the ability to hold out for more. That muscle, when strengthened, changes everything. It gives you power, not over others, but over yourself. And when you can master your own impulses, you can master your future. It won't always feel heroic. In fact, most of the time it will feel ordinary, quiet, maybe even unnoticed. You'll turn down things no one claps for. You'll say no when no one is watching. You'll work when others rest. And it won't pay off right away, but one day it will. One day the compounding of all those decisions will burst through, and people will call it luck. They'll call it talent. But you'll know better. You'll know it was earned, not through flashes of brilliance, but through years of restraint, through the refusal to give in when the easy road appeared. You chose the long road, the harder one, but also the higher one. So when that familiar voice whispers today, why not now? Just once, just a little. Pause, breathe, remember what you're building. Remember why you started, and choose the voice of your future self, not your present craving. Because every time you delay what is easy, you give strength to the part of you that was born for something greater. You shape the life that others only fantasize about. You trade moments for mastery, the strength of stillness. Calm is a weapon. In a world addicted to movement, stillness is a rare and potent force. Look around and you'll see it. People rushing, talking without listening, reacting without thinking. There's a kind of frantic energy pulsing through every room, every interaction. Everyone's trying to be first, loudest, fastest. But in the midst of that storm, the one who remains calm rises above it all. The one who is still becomes the one who sees clearly, moves wisely, and strikes only when it matters. In the noise, calm becomes your weapon. Stillness is not laziness, nor is it retreat. It is not apathy or disengagement. It is presence without panic. It is awareness without urgency. It is power without performance. To be still is to be so grounded in yourself that external chaos cannot shake your internal peace. It is the strength of a mind that does not flinch, a heart that does not overreact, a spirit that does not sway with every gust of wind. Think of the strongest trees. They do not flail wildly in the wind. They do not break in every storm. They stand, rooted, flexible enough to bend, but solid enough not to fall. This is what you become when you embrace stillness, not passive, but prepared, not frozen, but focused. You remain unmoved not because you are stubborn, but because you have trained yourself not to be a slave to impulse. Most people live at the surface of things. They react to what is loudest, most immediate, most emotional. They hear words but miss meaning. They act fast but lose direction. They speak quickly but forget to think. But what if you didn't rush to speak? What if you paused before reacting? What if you stepped back from the frenzy long enough to actually see what's going on? There is wisdom in stillness. You begin to notice things others miss. You see intention beneath words, motive beneath action, opportunity beneath challenge. Stillness gives you access to the deeper current of life that frantic energy always misses. You start moving, not out of fear or pressure, but out of alignment with what actually matters. Stillness is not the absence of motion, it's the presence of mastery. It's the ability to choose your response instead of being dragged by reaction. When someone provokes you, stillness lets you pause instead of lash out. When anxiety rises, stillness helps you breathe through it rather than drown in it. When the world demands urgency, stillness lets you act on your own timing, not out of avoidance, but out of wisdom. Imagine being the one in the room who doesn't scramble, who doesn't fight for attention, who listens more than they speak, and when they do speak, every word lands with weight. That person doesn't need to prove anything. They are the proof. Their calm radiates. Their presence anchors the space. People trust them, even if they don't know why. It's because calm people are rare, and rare things are respected. Let others chase speed. You chase clarity. Let others burn themselves out trying to do it all at once. You conserve energy and direct it where it counts. Let others be loud. You'll be precise. In a world where everyone is shouting, the one who whispers with intention gets heard. Ask yourself, what could you learn if you were not racing to respond? What could you understand if you didn't interrupt your own thinking with assumptions? What could you accomplish if your energy wasn't constantly leaking into things that don't matter? Stillness is not something you stumble into. It is cultivated. It is chosen again and again, especially when the pressure mounts. It is not weakness. It is the ultimate discipline to remain steady when every part of you is tempted to react. It is control not over others, but over yourself. And when you master that, you become different. People notice it, even if they can't name it. You begin to lead without trying to lead. You influence without forcing influence. You become a presence that calms others simply because you've already calmed yourself. So when the world becomes loud, fast, and frantic, don't join the race. Don't match their chaos. Slow down. Anchor yourself. Let the storm pass while you stand firm. Because stillness is not inaction. It's preparation. It's insight. It's power, sharpened by patience. And when everything else is noise, your calm will be your greatest advantage. Becoming the example, living a life that speaks without words, there comes a moment when you realize that the greatest impact isn't made with a microphone, but with a mirror. Not the one you look into, but the one you become for others. In a world overflowing with opinions, declarations, and noise, the rarest thing of all is someone whose life simply shows the truth they stand for without needing to explain it. People talk endlessly about what they're going to do, about what matters, about who they are or what they believe, but talk is weightless. What gives a life gravity is the quiet, unwavering consistency of aligned action. You don't have to convince anyone that you're improving, that you're growing, or that you stand for something. You just have to live like it, especially when no one is watching. That's what makes the difference. Every person you meet, whether they show it or not, is carrying something invisible. Fear, doubt, fatigue. They're looking for proof that someone, somewhere, is living with discipline, with love, with integrity. They're scanning the world for signs that it's still possible to live a meaningful life in the middle of chaos. You might never hear them say it, but deep down, they are hoping someone like you exists. Not someone perfect, but someone real, grounded, honest, awake. Will you be that person? You don't need to be a leader in title to be a leader in truth. Real leadership, real inspiration isn't about position or recognition. It's about quiet example. It's about becoming the kind of person whose actions create ripples, whose discipline sharpens others, whose presence offers shelter in a loud, frenzied world. And that doesn't require permission. It only requires consistency. Think about someone you truly respect, not someone who impressed you with words, but someone who lived in a way that made you want to step up. Chances are it wasn't what they said that shaped your view of them. It was how they carried themselves, the way they showed up, the choices they made when they could have taken the easier path. Maybe they never even knew you were watching, but you were, and it mattered. Now consider this. Someone is watching you the same way. They're noticing when you rise early and keep your promises, when you finish the hard task without cutting corners, when you stay kind in the face of bitterness or hold your values when it would be easier to abandon them. They're watching when you say nothing, but your body language speaks integrity. They're learning from your example, even in silence. You become the lighthouse, not by flashing lights and sounding alarms, but by simply standing tall, shining steady, refusing to flicker when the storm rages. You become the example, not by forcing change in others, but by being so rooted in your own purpose that they are drawn to find their own. What does your life say when your mouth is closed? What do your habits reveal about your priorities? When the pressure rises, do you hold to the same values you preach when things are easy? This is where example is forged. not in highlight reels, but in the unglamorous moments that make up most of our lives. You don't need a stage to make a difference. The example you set in your home, your workplace, your community carries farther than you think. The child watching you choose patience over rage. The friend observing your commitment to growth. The coworker quietly noticing your refusal to gossip. All of these are moments where your example becomes a lesson, where your choices plant seeds. It's not about being flawless. It's about being real and consistent in your realness. It's about living in such a way that if someone followed you silently for a month, they'd know what you stand for without needing to ask. That's the power of living aligned. You stop needing to convince people because your life does all the talking. In this age, everyone has a platform. Everyone has something to say. But what the world is starved for is embodiment. We don't need more slogans, more lectures, more declarations of virtue. We need more people who quietly live their values in the background. People whose lives prove their words. And maybe that's your calling. Not to be the loudest in the room, not to be the one who always has the answers, but to be the one who quietly lives a life others feel in their bones. A life that, without ever asking for praise, inspires someone else to rise, to keep going, to believe better is possible. You won't always see the impact you have. Often, your influence will go unspoken. But rest assured, your presence, when rooted in integrity and intention, matters more than you can measure, and someday, somewhere, someone will point to you, not because of what you said, but because of how you lived, and say, that's what it looks like. So keep showing up, keep choosing alignment, keep walking the path when others just talk about it. You are the example, you are the proof. Even in silence, your life is speaking.